the one heart can't go both ways? Yes, sister.
It's like this girl, I know her, she has cancer.
Yes.
And she told me, because Allah gave me this, I'm going to disobey him. And I said to her, look, at the end of the day, are you dead? And she goes, no. And I said, well, there's no way you can't turn back to God.
That's right, yeah, exactly
So just
right.
because you have a disease doesn't mean you stop believing.
Sometimes, really good point, sister. So a sister has cancer, she's upset about it, and so she's mad at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so she wants to stop praying. How does that sit with you in light of what we just finished talking about husn al-dhan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Let me give you another nugget of information. See if we can rethink this cancer thing. Okay? Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said that if any discomfort affects a believer, affects someone who is a Muslim, someone who said La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, if any discomfort afflicts that person, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is compensating them for that discomfort with hasanat, good deeds, which is the currency of the afterlife. Even if a Muslim walks past a rose bush and one of the thorns of the rose bush just nicks them, that tiny scratch that you couldn't even call it a cut, it's not even a cut, it's less than a paper cut. Even that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you a reward of good deeds for that affliction that you suffered. Now look at the issue of disease in light of that hadith. I was actually driving with a couple of brothers. We had a long drive to do on Saturday. We were talking about this in the car. And I told him it's actually a good sign if a Muslim gets very sick towards the end of their life. It's actually a good sign for the afterlife of that person. He said, what do you mean? I said, if someone is Muslim and towards the end of their life they become sick and they're in a lot of pain, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is purifying them before they come to meet Him. So for every ounce of pain that they feel, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them good deeds, giving them good deeds, giving them good deeds. And the battle with cancer might last years or even decades. So they are being loaded up with rewards and good deeds so that when they come to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have no sins to pay for. Their account is in a positive balance. They have more good deeds than bad deeds. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can welcome them with a smile and say, welcome. You don't have anything to be held accountable for. You don't have to answer any questions. You can go straight to paradise. So this gift of knowledge that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us through His prophets and messengers and through Prophet Muhammad in the Holy Quran, it really, you can't navigate life correctly without it. Because we just talked about that an injection is a good thing, not a bad thing, and we all understood that. But it's exactly the same with a disease. It can even be the same thing if the person is patient with even the loss of a child. So if we didn't know this stuff, you might be forgiven for thinking that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is cruel or sadistic. Astaghfirullah. Allah is not these things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts every chapter in the Quran except one. He starts with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the most merciful, the especially merciful, the most gracious. That's how He starts every single chapter. You start the chapter by knowing who's doing the talking. It's the most merciful, the most gracious. He could have said the most merciful and also the severe in punishment. He could have done that. He could have just said, in the name of Allah, the most severe in punishment. Bismillahi shadidul iqab. In the name of Allah, the one who punishes severely. Now listen to what I have to say. He could have done that. He didn't. He started the chapter with, every chapter except one with, in the name of Allah. Who is Allah? The most forgiving, the most gracious, the most merciful, the most compassionate, the most kind. This is what He has to say. This is what the most kind has to say. This is what the most forgiving, the most compassionate has to say. So you start every surah with that lens of mercy. The one who's merciful and compassionate is telling you, don't do this. That's really different to the one who is severe in punishment is telling you, don't do this. Those are two different things. Right? Even I have 3 kids. When I'm at home with my kids, I could say, hey, listen, don't do that. If you be good, I'll let you have ice cream. Or I could say, if you do that again, I'm going to give you a smack. I'm saying the same thing. But who's doing the saying? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding you and me that that's His commitment to mercy and forgiveness. His commitment to mercy and forgiveness is so permanent and so unchanging that the first thing He ever created was His own throne. It's not this is a plastic chair. But the first thing He ever created was His own throne. And inscribed or engraved or etched, I don't know because I haven't seen it, above that throne, it says, my mercy prevails over my anger. That's what it says. Permanent, can never be changed. My mercy overpowers my anger. My forgiveness overtakes my wrath. Permanent, can never be changed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, if I have a reason to be angry with you, but I have a reason to forgive you, I'm always going to forgive you. The forgiveness is always going to wipe out the anger. Now, you don't even have that relationship with your spouse. All the couples are laughing. You don't even have that relationship with your spouse. You don't even have that relationship with your kids. You don't even have that relationship with your mother. Your mother who gave birth to you, you don't have that. I guarantee you there's something you could do to your mother. There's something that she won't forgive you. I guarantee there's something your kids could do that you won't forgive them. I guarantee there's something your spouse could do that you won't forgive them. Maybe not right away. They'll have to do a lot of work to be forgiven for something like that. Yes, sister.
Please excuse me, I might have lots of questions.
That's fine. Welcome.
My personal experience with prayer has been very, very difficult.
Yes.
It's the hardest thing for me to do out of everything.
Subhanallah. Have we ever met before today?
I don't think so.
Have we ever spoken before today?
I don't think so.
Subhanallah. And Allah has brought you here in the first half hour. We've been speaking about the salah. Subhanallah. Please continue.
So, even though it's so hard for me, like literally physically, if I stand for prayer, everything in my body rejects it. But another thing that makes it even more complicating and difficult is that if I don't do it, I'm going to be punished. So sometimes I fail to see it as a phone call with Allah that He enjoys and wants me to do, because if I don't turn up, I'm in trouble.
Yes.
So how do I deal with that and the constant guilt about it? Because sometimes even the guilt makes me stop, makes it harder.
You don't want to do it.
I don't want to do it because I have to remember the guilt about not doing it before.
Okay. First of all, first thing I'm going to say is, sister, absolutely, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to be in this room today. Absolutely. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. And I'll tell you why I'm sure of that. Okay? And then I'm going to answer your question. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I said the first thing He created was His own throne. Right? The second thing He created was the pen. And He commanded the pen to start writing. And the pen said, what shall I write? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, write everything that's going to happen. And the pen started to write that the earth would be created, and there will be dinosaurs, and and eventually we would get to the steam engine, and then the internal combustion, and then we're going to put a man on the moon. And then it got to today, and then it got to this moment, and wrote the names of everyone who would be here. And every word that I'm saying is written in this book, and continued to write everything until the end of time. And when the pen was finished, and there was nothing else to write, and all the names of people going to heaven were written, all the people going to hell were written, and everything was all done and dusted, then the pen finished. Then 50,000 years went by. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the planet Earth. And now here we are. So the fact that you're in this room, my sister, was written 50,000 years before the earth was created. It was written that you would be here, and every word that I'm saying now was written in that book, including your question just now. So number one, take heart in the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted you to hear everything that was said here tonight. Alhamdulillah. Secondly, why are we going to be punished for stuff? Who is the lovely man whose hand you're holding?
Oh, that's my husband.
This is your husband, okay. What's your name, my brother?
Daniel.
Daniel, okay, Daniel. If you and Daniel had a dinner date. When's your anniversary? Daniel, don't mess this up, Daniel.
Why do you have to ask that?
So one of you knows, surely.
It's the 14th of May, I think.
14th of May, okay. So, all right, well, she saved you because she said, I think. So she wasn't real sure. So
I forget.
So you're off the hook. Okay. 14th of May. Let's say 14th of May. It's special. It doesn't sound like it's very special, but let's say it's special. Let's say it's real special, right? And Daniel has told you that he's going to take you out to a fancy dinner. He's booked the most expensive restaurant in town, and he's got his best tuxedo on, and he's got you booked a limo, and after the dinner, he's taking you to the top of the Sydney Opera House, which you can't even stand up there, but he managed to do it somehow. And he's done all of this. Now, he's done all of this, why? Why?
It's a special occasion.
Yeah?
I'm important.
Yes, he's done all this because he loves you. Fair assumption, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's done all this because he loves you. And he's told you that he's doing all this stuff. And he's told you that it's important to him. He's put in a lot of effort. He really wants to see that smile on your face when you get picked up in the limo and have a sumptuous dinner and go out and have a romantic evening together as a married couple. And then you don't show up. You just don't show up. You didn't tell him anything. You didn't say anything. There was no emergency. You just decided that day that you would rather watch Netflix. How do you think Daniel is going to feel about that decision that you made to watch Netflix? Answer my question.
He wouldn't feel great.
Yeah, he wouldn't feel great because he loves you. Now, guaranteed, there's going to be some repercussions, right, to that decision to watch Netflix. There's at least going to be a conversation. True? Fair? Okay. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He didn't get you a limo and invite you to dinner. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you life. You didn't exist. 100 years ago, you were not even a sperm and an egg. Not even that. No one could see you even under a microscope 100 years ago. Or me or anyone else in here. True? We were nothing. Nothing. Literally nothing. There was not one cell that was you. And out of this nothing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created a living, breathing, thinking human being that has a body and an intellect that modern science could never hope to replicate. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you thoughts and emotions, feelings, compassion, mercy, love. But that wasn't enough. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't want to leave you on this earth without any guide. How do we know what's good for us and what's bad for us? How do we know what's going to have a better long-term versus short-term effect? How do we know what's morally right and wrong? We keep changing our minds as a species as to what's morally right and wrong. Death penalty, is it right or wrong? It was right 100 years ago, now it's wrong. Homosexuality was wrong 100 years ago, now it's right. We just had Pride Day, apparently. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't want you to go through life confused. And He didn't want to take the chance that you would meet Him on the last day and it would be an unpleasant meeting or that He would be disappointed in you. So He said, look, I'm going to send you the ultimate guide to everything. I'm going to give you all the answers to all the questions that you could ever want to ask. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the very beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. This book, there's no doubt about it. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. A guidance to those who have a consciousness of God. That's the purpose of this book. It's a book that there's no doubt about the information contained in it. There's no contradiction. There's nothing in there that's ever been disproven. In fact, the Quran has been 1400 years ahead of modern science. And what's the purpose of this book? هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. A guidance to those who are conscious of God. People pay money for a guide, don't they? When you go overseas to somewhere that's new and foreign to you, You pay money for someone with local expertise to show you around, to say this is the good markets and these are the bad markets. This is the honest seller and this is the dishonest seller. This is the good restaurant and this is the restaurant that's going to give you some stomach problems. Right? So that expertise is worth something. So the one who created the earth has given you a guide how to live on the earth. And if you follow that guide and live happily on earth, you will get an amazing reward of going to paradise and being happy forever, permanently. Having whatever you can imagine and even things you can't imagine in there. So, your husband made some phone calls and some bookings and paid some money, and that would have been an incredible anniversary idea. Let's put that in for next year, inshallah. That would have been a really nice thing that he did, right? Can anyone say that that's not a nice thing? That would have been a really nice night. Actually, if she doesn't want to go, I'll come with you. Go and enjoy ourselves. He's done just those things as a proof of his love and affection, as a gesture of his love and affection. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has done so much more. So much more, so much more, so much more. And just as Daniel would be disappointed if you decided not to come, maybe he wouldn't speak to you for a while. Maybe he will be a bit cranky when you see him. Maybe he will ask for an explanation. Exactly the same from someone who loves you, from someone who you've married. Exactly the same reaction you can expect from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He loves you. And He's gone to an enormous amount of trouble for you. And for you to just decide to not show up, you have to expect, a reasonable person would expect, just as Daniel would be hurt, just as Daniel would want an explanation, it's the same with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes?
So, Daniel would set up an anniversary for us because I'm his wife. And
Yeah.
I'm his wife because he loves me and he wanted to marry me for that purpose, let's say.
Yeah.
Did God create us because He wants to love us?
Subhanallah.
Does He want us to be companions in heaven with Him?
So you are a companion with your husband. You guys are the same species. You are equal.
Yeah.
You're peers. You're partners.
Yeah.
The relationship we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not a partnership relationship. The relationship we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a creation relationship. So the example with you and Daniel was an example to illustrate that someone who loves you and has expressed that love through action and work would be disappointed if that wasn't reciprocated. That was just an example. This was a little micro example of the relationship and the concept of giving out of love. But the relationship we have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not one of equality. You and your husband in your relationship, you have an equal say. One night he wants Chinese, one night you want pizza. One of you has to give in to the other. You have to compromise. Say, okay, look, we have pizza tonight, but Chinese tomorrow. That's not the relationship we have with Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala isn't going to say to us, you should pray. And we'll say, okay, I'll pray today, but let's compromise. I won't pray tomorrow. So the marriage example is an example. Sometimes in this class I give examples about parents and their children, that parents tell their children what to do because they love them. I tell my children not to jump on their beds, not because I don't want them to have fun, but because I don't want them to get hurt. And I know sooner or later, if there's jumping on the bed, someone is going to bump their head. I didn't even mean for that to rhyme. But the relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is He's the creator, not just of you and me. He's the creator of the cosmos. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created trillions of living things. He's on another level. He's something else entirely. He's even told us that we're unable to comprehend what He is. And when I asked my teacher about this, comprehending Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said to me, do you know this kitchen scale? That you weigh 20 grams of flour or 30 grams of rice, or you know these little, they're this big, little kitchen scale. He said, can you weigh a Mack truck on that scale? I said, no, you can't. He said it's the same thing. The human mind is like the kitchen scale. There are some things that we can process and comprehend. But when it comes to what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can't comprehend. How old is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We can't comprehend. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala look like? We can't comprehend. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described Himself to us with the 99 names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And these are descriptions of His, you could say, personality, if we can use that word. He has told us the things about himself that we need to know to have a relationship with him. But can we comprehend what he is? No. Even on that night of ascension, where the command of prayer was given that our brother Tony was talking about, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was walking side by side with the angel Jibreel. And they got to a certain stage, they got to a certain marker that's called Sidratul Muntaha. And the angel Jibreel, he said, I can't go any further, you go on. Imagine being a human being and being floated up to the heavens and you're about to meet God. And the person that's guiding you through this whole supernatural journey, he says, okay, you go the rest of the way by yourself. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he said to the angel Jibreel, he said, is this where a friend leaves his friend? You're my friend, you're going to leave me here, but you want me to go by myself? Just walking through the cosmos by myself? Sayyidina Jibreel, he said, I can't go any further. If I come any closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I will burst into flames. This is as close as I can get to the Almighty. But you will be allowed to pass safely. Now, it's an amazing hadith. It's even more amazing when you understand who is the angel Jibreel. The angel Jibreel has 600 wings. Each wing is big enough that if he unfolded it, he would cover the earth from the sun. And if the angel Jibreel shouted, if he just shouted, the entire planet Earth would shatter. That's the power of Sayyidina Jibreel, physical power. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes him as Shadidul Quwa, severe in his strength. He can destroy planets if he wanted to, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded him to. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given Muhammad ﷺ, who is in this scenario, he's representing the human race, the privilege of coming closer to him than the Archangel Gabriel, who's never disobeyed Allah. Angels don't disobey God. They can't. It's outside of their programming. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you, perfect creation who's never disobeyed me, you stay there. But you, Muhammad, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, representing the human race that's flawed, that makes mistakes every day, that sins every day, you can come. Adam, the first human being who would go on to commit sins eating from the tree, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created him, he commanded all of the angels to bow to him. Another symbolic gesture of where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts the human beings in the ranking of things. That he's created a perfect creation called the angels that don't sin, that worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala day and night. And when he created this flawed, imperfect creation called the human being, he told all these perfect creations to bow down to this one. That's going to make mistakes. That's going to commit sins, that's going to lie, that's going to steal, that's going to cheat, that's going to murder, that's going to rape. This human being is going to do all these things, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded the angels to bow down to that. Look at if you zoom out from your own individual life, if you zoom out and look at the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has treated the whole human race, not only these examples that I've given, even the 124,000 prophets and messengers that he sent, 124,000. Now, I don't care about anyone enough to tell them something 124,000 times. I love my parents, I love my wife, I love my kids. But look, if I've told you like 1,000 times, I'm probably going to stop telling you. Do you know what I mean? Like, no matter how much I love you, I'm not going to have the patience to keep telling you the good advice 124,000 times. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us as a species 124,000 times. We disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala day and night. Look at the planet Earth. How much alcohol is being consumed on a daily basis. How much drugs, how much murder, how much rape, how much dishonesty, how much theft, how much pollution, how much Donald Trump. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still feeding all of us. Still giving air to all of us. Still giving drink to all of us. Still speaking to us. Still answering us when we make dua and ask for something. He's still responding. Still. One sheikh in the United States, he's a revert, but he's a sheikh. He said, I'm surprised that there's still so much mercy when we're so bad as a species. As a species, look how terrible we are. Look what we're doing to the planet, right? So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is endlessly giving us these gestures to show us that we're important. To show us that He cares about us. To show us that He loves us. And to show us that He wants. And it's inscribed over His throne, my mercy and forgiveness overpowers my anger. It's another way of saying, just try. Really, when I hear that inscription, when we talk about that inscription, I'm thinking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, just try. Even if you stuff up, but you're trying, that's okay. Even if you make a mistake, but you're trying, the mercy of Allah, because you're trying, is going to overcome the anger because you made some mistakes. So, my dear sister, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala absolutely loves you. But it's not the same love between a husband and wife. It's a love of a creator who has absolute power, who sees everything, hears everything, knows everything, and is closer to you than your jugular vein, which is inside your body. He's closer to you than that vein, and he says, do this. So who are we to say, I don't want to? Or to say no? Yes.
It's not even that I don't want to.
Yeah.
I want to so much.
Okay.
It's just physically impossible to do it. And I understand that it's not the same as a marital relationship.
Yeah.
You know, my husband sets up the date for the anniversary and I don't turn up.
There's a lot of pressure on you, Daniel. I gotta be honest. There's a lot of pressure that you need to do something big for the next anniversary.
But when I don't turn up, he doesn't know why.
Mm.
He's left in the dark.
Mm.
But when I can't pray to God, God is there in here,
Yeah.
like you said,
Yeah.
and He's seeing, and maybe not seeing, but like his awareness is there, and He is aware of whatever it is that's going on inside me.
Yeah.
What is the outcome of that? Because you know, my husband will get upset if I don't turn up for the date.
Yeah.
But is God going to punish me for my inability to pray, even though He is aware of what it is that's stopping me from doing it?
Okay. Good question. Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
When you say physically impossible to do, I'm sure you don't mean that literally.
Sometimes it is literal. Sometimes
it's an impossibility.
it's like physical discomfort.
Okay, discomfort is different to impossible. So I want to really understand your situation.
So there's a lot of physical discomfort.
What's the cause of that discomfort?
I have no idea. But there are a lot of thoughts around it, as I mentioned earlier. So there's accumulated guilt.
Yeah.
Why am I going to get punished for not doing this? If I don't do this right now, in a second or something, I'm not even going to be Muslim anymore. So what's the whole point? You know, just a cycle of commentaries like that, on and on. They get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, and then I'm standing there and I'm like, I don't even know if I'm a Muslim right now.
Right.
And the body, like, my body is very in tune with my mind. So if my mind is rejecting something, it's hard for my body to follow on. So if everything in my head is giving me lots of doubts and problems with doing a certain activity, I feel physical discomfort with doing it.
Okay.
So that's what I mean by, the physical.
So there's a lot of guilt and there's a lot of what's the point? Right. Okay.
Despair, essentially, and nihilism.
Right. That makes sense. Okay. Subhanallah. So,
Please don't feel pressure to to give me any advice on this. It's just
I don't feel any pressure here. Alif, can I borrow your phone? Actually, sister, may I borrow your phone? I just want to do a Google search.
Sure.
Yeah. My phone is recording, so I just want to show you something, and it's good that I use your phone because it'll stay on your screen. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read to you something called a hadith Qudsi, or in English, a sacred hadith. This collection of a hadith is ideas that have come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they're not part of the Quran. So they weren't specific verses of the Quran, but they're teachings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and the Prophet relayed those teachings in his own words. So these are not the words of God, they're the ideas of God, but in the words of Prophet Muhammad, okay? And I'm going to leave it open on your screen, okay? I think this is what you're looking for. One of the companions, his name was Anas. He heard the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, so this is Allah speaking. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, O son of Adam, that includes daughters as well of Adam. O son of Adam, so long as you call upon me and ask of me, I shall forgive you for what you have done, and I shall not mind. O son of Adam, were your sins to reach the clouds of the sky, and were you then to ask forgiveness of me, I would forgive you. O son of Adam, were you to come to me with sins nearly as great as the earth itself, and were you then to face me, ascribing no partner to me, I would bring you forgiveness nearly as great as that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in this and in many other places that it's so clear that you don't need to carry any guilt around for your past. If you ask for forgiveness, even if your sins were as big as the entire planet Earth, even if they reached the clouds, as long as you know that it's only Allah that's up there and no one else, and you ask forgiveness, you are guaranteed forgiveness. Guaranteed. There's only 4 prerequisites for that forgiveness. Number 1 is you have to regret what you have done, which you already have got plenty of that. Number 2, you have to ask for forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm sure you can do that. Number 3, you have to intend not to go back to the sin that you used to do. So if you decide from today, let's say, today's the 2nd of July, 2019. Let's say you decide from today to rule a line under the past. Just rule a line underneath it. Ask Allah for forgiveness. And say, Ya Allah, I don't want to live that way. I don't want to have this guilt anymore. I want to move forward with you with a fresh start. And I want to obey you. And you intend not to go back to that sin, then if you meet those criteria of regret, asking for forgiveness, and not repeating the sin, then inshallah you'll be forgiven. The last one is if you have wronged someone, to right the wrong. If you've stolen somebody's car, you have to give the car back. But in this case, it's just between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that forgiveness is guaranteed for you. It's guaranteed. It's literally as simple as asking for it, then it's guaranteed. Then it's guaranteed. I think when you got up a second ago, I mentioned that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has that inscription of my mercy overcomes my anger or wrath, that if I paraphrase it for myself, because I'm a simple person, if I paraphrase it, it means just do your best. Just do your best. If you're trying, then I'm going to forgive you for the stuff that you make mistakes with. If you're trying. But if you don't try, that's a different category. It's a different situation. And honestly, you guys have kids or no kids? No kids. I have kids, and I'm sure you know what kids are, right? If a kid is trying, the parent won't get mad at them. If a kid is trying anything, trying to clean, trying to make the bed, whatever it is, if the kid is trying, you're not going to get mad. If my kid who's 5 tries to make his bed, I guarantee he's not going to be able to make the bed like an adult would, but I'm just happy that he's trying. I'm not going to get mad that there's some wrinkles in it. Exactly that. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see from us. He just wants us to try. And if we try and make mistakes, the forgiveness is there. In fact, it's known in our religion that if all the human beings stopped committing sins, that is, if all the human beings were perfect Muslims, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would create some new race. And that race would commit sins. And that race that commits sins would ask forgiveness so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can forgive them. Because if we were all perfect, and the angels are all perfect, and the jinn are all perfect, and none of us ever disobeyed, how can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say that He's the most forgiving? There's nothing to forgive. This quality, this personality trait of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He's the most forgiving and the most merciful, that needs creations that sin so that they could ask for forgiveness and be forgiven. That needs creations that deserve punishment so that He can not punish them and then He could be merciful. True? How can someone say they're the most merciful or most forgiving when there's nothing to forgive? There's nobody that's committing any sins. There's no forgiveness then. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most forgiving, even if only the angels existed and they committed no sins. Allah would still be the most forgiving. But I'm just illustrating an example to you. So, in a nutshell, my dear sister, and I really want you to know that Allah has written for you to be here and for us to have this conversation, and forget the rest of the slides, okay? Tonight is about you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves you. He loves you so much that you didn't exist, but He made you a real walking, talking person. If you made a person, don't you think you would love them? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made you out of nothing. He knew your name from 50,000 years before the earth was created, and He knew even before the pen wrote it. So He knew for trillions of years your name.
Do you know we exist before as souls?
Yes,
We
did exist before as souls. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew you from back then. And He's waited all this time so that you can know that He expects you to pray so that He could hear you speak to Him. Isn't that beautiful? And what has He told you to say? He's told you to say, Ya Allah, please guide me. Please help me. Please make me from one of the people that You're pleased with. Ihdina as-sirat al-mustaqim. Guide us to the straight path. Sirat al-ladhina an'amta alayhim. Guide me to that same path of all the people that You love. That's what He's told you to say. Does that sound like someone who hates you or someone who can't wait to punish you? Sounds like someone who loves you. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those who You love. That's where we want to be. Allah said, yeah, ask me, tell me to guide you to the straight path of the people that I love. Not the people that have gone astray, not the people who I'm angry with. I want you to say that. You guys ever tell each other what to say? Sometimes I tell my wife, you could say I love you a bit more often. I want to hear it. Now, I know that she loves me. We've been married 15 years. I know that she loves me. But I like to hear it. I wouldn't hurt you to say it. Say it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to you and me, say, please, Ya Allah, guide us to the straight path, the path of those who You love, not the people who You're angry with. Ameen. It's so clear that He loves you so much. If He didn't love you, then if it was all about the anger and the punishment, you would already be dead. And so would I, and so would these people. We would make one mistake and boom, heart attack. Go on. Off to hell. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. But He hasn't done it like that. He's inscribed above His throne, which is bigger than galaxies. My mercy comes first before my anger. The mercy is there. Every surah starts with mercy and compassion. Every salah, we're asking for guidance. We're asking for Him to not be angry with us. That's someone who loves you. That's someone who cares about you.
Thank you.
You know?
Sorry to hold this up.
No, it's fine. That was good. That was good. And I can tell you, I speak on behalf of the class. Sister, we all love you for the sake of Allah.
Thank you.
Sister, we all love you for the sake of Allah. Thank you so much. And I really thank you for being brave enough to say what's on your mind. I really appreciate that. I respect that a lot. And that hadith is open on your phone, by the way. So thanks for lending that to me. It's a good thing we have Google here to help us know what to talk about. Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah for everything. Now, I've already prayed Isha, but would you guys like to all pray 2 rak'ahs together before we go? Sound good? Yeah? Would you like to join us?
I could, I suppose.
Okay. All right. Inshallah, let's move the chairs away and we'll pray 2 rak'ahs together.
Oh, thanks.